SCP-1762, Where the Dragons Went, by the Exploring series. As always, those links to the original video and channel are going to be down in the description below, so go ahead and make sure that you check them out. The only thing I remember about this specific SCP from people I've commented in the past is that it's incredibly sad. That's kind of all I had to go on it. If you could do me just one quick favor real quick, if you could hit that like button, subscribe, really does help me a lot. It goes a long way as far as like the YouTube algorithm and all that. But other than that, let's go ahead and get right into the video.
SCP-1762, Where the Dragons Went. Fantasy is one of our most pervasive fictional genres, as it has integrated itself into movies, video games, books, comics, and any other medium of entertainment. For thousands of years, people have enjoyed telling tales of fantastical worlds and mythical creatures, entertaining and amusing one another with things beyond our own existence. Although we often write off any sort of belief in fantasy to the whimsies of children, the eccentric, or of ancient unenlightened civilizations, SCP-1762 is about belief in the fantastical. 1762 is one of the sadder articles on the site, as it shows a
Wait, okay, also, I don't remember the SCP off the top of my head. It was the one where I guess you were able to, kind of like you were living out your dream or something, or like people were becoming an adventurer, and that the person who was making these things happen, I think it was like a wizard. This is quite a while ago, so my memory's probably ugh. But it kind of sounded similar to that, right? As far as like his fantasy, adventure, just thinking like that. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, watching more SCP is probably going to bring back little glimpses of memories of certain things or certain SCPs.
Tragedy that the Foundation was helpless to prevent, and ultimately,
a hero's something, a hero's tale, a hero something, a hero is born, or something hero-wise. See, it's kind of coming back together.
A loss of innocence. SCP-1762 is a small cardboard box, spray-painted silver on the outside and inside, with the words, "Here be dragons," written on the side of it, with a black marker. The box is normally empty, but occasionally will open by itself, billowing out a large amount of black smoke. During this period, a number of small animate creatures will emerge from the box, ranging from 50 to over 400. These creatures resemble dragons, both Eastern and Western designs, but are made from origami paper in forms similar to origami models. They are each capable of flight, reaching speeds up to 15 kilometers per hour, and will fly around in groups, interacting playfully with each other and anyone nearby. After 2 to 3 hours, the dragons will fly back into the box, which emits smoke once again, ending with the box closing itself.
Alright, so just based off of all of that, say 3 to 5 hours, right? As far as them going now, kind of flying around, can go 50 kilometers per hour, I think it was. I wonder if they're just kind of moving or if they're actually like flapping their little wings, right? But as far as like some things that immediately pop into my head, do they have a time limit as far as it can be out, or is that just what they prefer, 3 to 5 hours, stretch out their wings a little bit? Stretch out their wings, you know, kind of like if they were in that, maybe the box was like a little prison, right? That's kind of what my mind went to. I mean, doesn't seem like they're bad, right? So it's probably just one of those SCPs that are just kind of there. Eventually, I know it's gonna get sad. But yeah, so also questions as far as like obviously like some of the main ones probably like who created it, how was it created, how is it that it's empty? I think he said it was, but then when it's closed, it'll sometimes open up by itself. See the smoke coming out. If it is portal wise, right, or dimension wise, has anybody ever tried to gone through when they're coming out or when they're going back in? See, like a lot of questions start coming up. Yeah.
Occasionally, at this point, a message will appear on top of the box, but the Foundation has been unsuccessful in transmitting any messages to the box or its denizens. 1762 entered Foundation custody sometime around 2004, and when the box first opened itself, A message was left on top of it. I think it's best if I simply read some of these messages in their entirety. The first message read, "You have found us. Thank you. It has been so long since we last saw each other, friends. The peace has been upheld. The giants and behemoths have kept their word and have not caused any trouble since you last came and gave the order. We missed your company. How has your family been? Do you still know how to work your room? You are welcome to visit any time." Clearly the message is addressed to someone other than the Foundation, as the Foundation has no idea how to respond, and there's no details as to who the previous owner of the box was. The second message the box sent...
Well, obviously Behemoth. Who is he talking about? I can't think of anyone. I mean, I don't know, like Scarlet King type stuff, or no, I mean, there's nothing really. I mean, there's like a couple very far left field type things I was thinking of. As far as maybe these were dragons, they actually existed, but maybe something was happening. They got put into these little origamis. Origami, right? And then that's kind of what happened. Or maybe there was like some kind of deal, right? I mean, wondering who the person was, the one that dropped it off. And on top of that, I mean, because they said that they didn't know who it was addressed to or who we came from. So, I mean, probably never gonna know. But how durable is that box? If that box were destroyed, right? If it's just made from like a regular cardboard and has like no maybe magical enchantments on it, would that kill all the dragons? Which, you know what? It's probably gonna be the sad part.
read, "It's strange to see how much your world has changed. It is even stranger to see how we now appear in this place. In fantasy, we are much bigger. Or maybe you've grown taller. Fantasy is still the same. We hope you can visit us like you used to. Though our room is as grand as ever, it appears yours has shrunken. We do not understand. The rooms were supposed to be maintained, as was our agreement. Please restore the belief." It would seem that the denizens of the box hail from another world, or dimension, they call fantasy, and the forms we see come out of the box are not their true forms. Also, there are apparently two rooms, through which interactions between the two worlds were done, and although theirs is grand, ours is shrunken, much like their form. They tell the Foundation to restore the belief.
So, just as you said right now, restoring the belief. Does that mean that people have some kind of latent power, right? As far as like making things exist. I saw this in a movie somewhere. Oh no, it was South Park actually. Imagination Land, right? As far as anything you think up is real in Imagination Land or an imaginary creature, right? And somehow they were able to like establish a connection.
But without further details, and with no way to return communications, the Foundation leaves the box to sit. Sometime later, the box opens, but only 20 creatures come out, and do not fly around. The message on the box read, "Friends, we apologize for our few numbers. We have had to remain in fantasy for quite some time. The others are growing impatient. We are trying to keep the peace, but please, for all of our happiness, repair the room quickly. We know you are trying. Your family is the most imaginative of us all." At this point, we're left with far more questions than answers, such as who are the others, what is the room, and what exactly do they mean by our family?
I don't know about the family, but would the room just be meaning like our Earth, right, or our dimension? And that's jacked up. You know, like some examples, like if people say pollution, or just maybe overpopulation, whatnot, something like that. That's really the only thing I can think of. Um, don't know about the others. I mean, maybe they're other more powerful fantasies creatures.
Unfortunately, things get worse from here. Some more time passes, until the box opens and only 10 creatures come out, along with 3 balls of yellow, crumpled construction paper. These balls shook violently for a few seconds before stopping, and the creatures picked them up and put them back in the box. The message read, "The giants were foolish. Your room was not ready to accept them yet. We're sorry, friends. We hope that we can still see you, but time is growing short for our happiness." Apparently, those 3 balls were giants of some kind, but they were unable to manifest in our world for some reason. Things begin to sound dire. The next time, only 5 creatures emerge, carrying a document with them. They leave it on the floor and return to the box. The document reads, "Tensions are rising."
Wait a minute. Could a giant, though, refer to a human in comparison to a little origami, right? Dragon? Maybe this is another dimension with people that are trying to communicate to them. That might be a bit far fetched, and maybe this is the only way they can communicate. I don't know. Far left field, whatever, or far right field. I don't know baseball terms, but I try to use them.
Fantasy is becoming darker. We, the serpents and the hybrids, are furiously trying to hold them back, but the giants and elves wish to strike and make an entrance. They say that your family has grown stupid and ignorant. We hope this untrue. It would sadden us all greatly to know that you have forgot. We get mentions of a couple new entities, hybrids and elves, and it seems the giants and elves are far more aggressive than the dragons and hybrids.
Is it possible? This is like, I heard something about have we forgotten, right? So could it be that at some point, I mean, because you hear like hundreds or thousands of years ago, they start to hear people like have these legends about like giants, right, existing, or I don't know, like the Loch Ness monster or something, right? And then maybe these things were only real. And this is coming from a supernatural episode I'm remembering from way back was when so many people believed in something, they were able to manifest it. But then eventually people start saying, "No, that's fake. That's just an old folks tale. That's a legend. It's not really real." Maybe they started slowly disappearing, or maybe they started to go back to the fantasy of where everybody's like thoughts and imaginations go. Right, going back to the imagination land. Yeah, man, I'm having to say a lot more things than I thought I was going to say on this SCP, but that's kind of where my mind was going.
Their world is growing darker, tensions are rising, and it all seems to be because of us, although the Foundation still has no idea what exactly is happening and how to fix it.
Maybe it's because, also going back to what I just said, right? I know I'm pausing quite a bit, but people's imaginations, like people aren't like as imaginative as they are, like say a couple years ago, right? Like maybe they're just focused on like trying to get a job, or they're focused on just trying to provide for their family, right? And they don't really have time to like be like imaginative, right? I think because of that, it starts to kill their world, because a lot of that belief starts to go away, kind of like the whole Tinkerbell thing, right? As far as like when that one girl, the main character, wasn't believing in fairies, right? And then she started to feel like weaker, right? Kind of like that. Maybe that's happening.
Fix it. Next, a single crumpled dragon emerges from the box, with torn wings, and it collapses on the floor after only a minute, at which point it rapidly unfolded, with 3 words written on it. War. Goodbye, friends. 2 hours later, the box opened and flames erupted out of it, with sounds of distant roaring being heard. Large amounts of torn paper and crumpled balls were ejected from the box, along with some damaged paper dragons that were quickly considered to be deceased. This continues for 6 weeks, until the amount of paper emitted from the box started to decrease, and eventually stopped. The box then remained closed and inactive for 7 months. At that time, another document was found inside the box, stained with blood, reading, "Are you still out there, friends? We miss you dearly. Fantasy is no longer safe. Our haven, your beautiful creation, is gone. The giants are dead. The centaurs are dead. The birds have fled. We are going to bury your room. We cannot risk hurting you. This is our goodbye. Maybe one day your family can build another room. This may be a hollow hope, but we will cherish this thought. Apparently, we are responsible for creating their haven somehow, but now it's gone, along with the giants, centaurs, and birds. It's still entirely unclear what happened to their world, but they're going to bury their room that connects to ours, so that whatever went to war with them can't hurt us.
Hmm. So, I mean, I don't know if the whole imagination thing comes into play now, right? Or fantasy, just because they said birds. But then again, it could be a different type of bird that doesn't exist, right? In this world, right? But in their world. So maybe the thing that they were going against was maybe, I don't know, like people's evil intentions or something like that. I mean, because, damn, it's kind of tricky. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking. But then again, um, what was it? Ironically enough, yesterday I ended up seeing one of those like movie or film recaps. I don't remember which YouTube channel it was, but it was talking about how there's these three demons that come in and take people's soul. Right? It's quite a bit of a tangent, but it's gonna make sense. So three demons come take people's souls. I believe it was a Korean film, and that there's a cult that starts appearing. That starts saying people are so violent today, and that it's crazy that the demons had enough, and they're just gonna start taking people who are evil. But then the guy from the YouTube, I don't even know his name, but he starts to say like, from statistically speaking, that people are doing like a lot less horrible stuff than what was happening like hundreds of years ago, right? Because there was like a more large scale, right? And then as years were going on, things have died down as far as to like the horrible things humans have done, right? So that's kind of like what I was getting as far as this, right? Um, as far as saying like maybe evil intentions, evil stuff like that. Well, maybe it could be that, but considering the charts he showed, they seem pretty legit. I don't know. The fact that it was going like that, that's kind of where I was thinking like it's probably not that evil intention thing that I was thinking about, but maybe it's like, I guess, being more cunning about it, or being more, I want to say smart, but like maybe being a little more sneaky with that evil, right? Like not outright knowing someone is capable of horrible things, but like I guess being like psychotic, manipulative of people, right? I don't know, big tangent, but that's what I was thinking. I thought it was evil intentions.
They hold out hope that one day we will restore the connection to their world. 1 hour after this message was found, the box began to shake and emit smoke, followed by it collapsing with small burn holes throughout. The words, "Here be dragons," were burned away. Sometime later, one final message was produced by the box, written on a scroll showing a mountainous landscape with a single winged dragon flying away. The message reads, "Master says that we won't see you again. We are sad. So are the remaining others. We once filled each other's heads with dreams and goals. It is so sad that we cannot share them any longer. Master says we have to go. He says that he will make us a new fantasy. He says you cannot be a part of it. We are sad. We love you. We will not forget you. We are scared. Will you forget us?" After removal of this document, the box began to leak salt water.
Damn, so much pausing in one video. Maybe that's like your more childhood self that's a little more imaginative, right? And maybe believes a lot more in fantasy. And maybe it's saying like, hey, don't forget like your. I mean, obviously they got kids in the photo, right? Maybe it's saying that, hey, like, the things he had as far as dreams, goals, and all that. Maybe actually try to go for them, but eventually, when most people grow up, a big percentage of people don't follow what they originally wanted to. Someone who wanted to become a sports star, right, doesn't end up becoming one. And then that little piece of him as like a child that thought like, hey, this is my dream, just ends up dying, right, with time. So that's kind of the thing. But I don't understand as far as when it says the master. I mean, no idea. No idea. Or maybe it's just like a phrase to like give a general indication of someone or something. I don't even know what that means.
water, and it quickly restored itself to its original condition, although the words on it now read, "Here were dragons." After some time passed with no further activity, SCP-1762 was declared neutralized and was kept in a researcher's office for commemorative purposes. 8 years go by with no activity, until suddenly the box began emitting purple smoke, dislodging a single purple crystal and a leather-bound book. The book is titled Beasts of the Old Letters and appears to be written by an explorer that observed the other world both before and after the war, although they are not sure what happened either. The book details a large number of the inhabitants of the other world, such as the Alafox, a two-headed bird with rainbow feathers, or the Note people of the eastern plains of Darius, made of living music. After expelling the book and the crystal, the box emitted smoke for 40 minutes before finally crumbling to dust. The crystal had the words, "One last time," carved into it. At this point, you might or might not need an explanation for SCP-1762, but I'll provide one either way. Centuries before the events described in this video, a connection was made between the world of fantasy and our world, back when belief and acceptance of the fantastical was much stronger. Two grand rooms were constructed to function as a bridge between the worlds, and both sides could freely interact with the other through them. As time passed, however, humanity's belief in things like dragons, giants, and elves passed from fact into fiction. The form of our
Hey, sometimes I get a win, and when I get a win, since it's not very often, I like to make sure. I just like to make sure that it's known because I don't have a whole lot specifically with this CP.
room and the creatures that passed through it changed to reflect our failing belief and became paper thin. The room shrunk down to a humble cardboard box, and the dragons showed up in our world as nothing more.
Okay, what if? Since it seems like that's what it is, right? As far as like when you grow up, you start to believe less in like fantasy legends and all that. What if the things that they ended up fighting, but ended up seemed like they lost, were other SCPs, right? And that's why a lot of these SCPs are just weird as hell, and they don't make any sense as to why they exist, who created them, where did they come from, why did they do the things they do, what are some of their motivations, right? And eventually, they just ended up taking over because maybe people started writing SCP stories, right? And then all of a sudden, people start kind of like maybe fantasizing about SCPs being real, and then people believing in it and then manifesting it. What, I sound like a mad scientist right now, but maybe it was SCP. I mean, I don't know if that's the original intent. It would be a cool way though to like I guess segue into like how SCP all started. Just saying.
More than origami figures. It seems our lack of belief began to directly impact their world, and things began to crumble. Despite this, however, their room never changed, as they never lost their belief in us. People come to the SCP universe in many different ways, and for many different reasons. Some enjoy the dark homages to Lovecraft and cosmic horror, others find it through survival horror video games, and some enjoy the more lighthearted and comedic side of SCP. It's likely that not many discover the SCP Wiki because of its touching, emotional articles, but they exist nonetheless. Although the SCP Foundation was ultimately ineffectual in doing anything about the fate of SCP-1762, as they can't change the world into believing in fantasy, maybe a time will eventually come when the dragons come back.
All right, let me get that nice little backdrop right there. Okay, bro, I had, oh my god, there was so much stuff. I paused a lot more than I thought I was gonna pause. I knew it was gonna be sad, which it was. I mean, considering that it feels like this whole thing is the way that someone put it, so a lot of people can find out like, hey, don't give up on your dreams. Try to follow your goals, right? As far as like when you start to grow up, right? I mean, hell, one of my goals, retire my mom, right? Make sure she never has to work. And I've had ups and downs as far as that goes, but I'm suddenly on the upward way of doing it, right? And I mean, like, what are your goals, right? What are some dreams that you had as a kid that ooh, that reminds me. I had a seventh grade teacher, Mr. I'm gonna call him Mr. G, but I still remember his name because it annoyed me at the time, and it kind of annoys me to this day. When he said, it was like in a computer class, and we had to do like a little project, right? As far as like learning how to research on a certain job that we wanted to do in the future, right? And he said, but be realistic. Don't say like you're gonna try to become a soccer player or a basketball player. And I'm like, how is that not realistic if somebody wanted to do that? I mean, not that I personally wanted to, but if that job wasn't realistic, how are people basketball players professionally? How are people professional soccer players, right? So that was honestly the big thing that was kind of like going through my mind as far as like this whole thing just really just being a message. Don't lose that little kid of yourself, right? So it's kind of like more. It seems kind of more of a motivational SCP, but I mean, in any case, that was really the only thing I had to say on this, just because it was kind of guiding into me. As soon as I started to realize, like, hey, this seems like obviously when you're a kid, you believe more in this, but yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for continuing to come back, and I'll see you all in the next video.